Hi, Steve Harrison here with authorsuccess.com. And have you ever asked yourself, hey, if you thought to yourself, hey, why am I so effed up? Well, this is the author of listen to this title. What if you're not as effed up as you think you are? How we come to believe lies about ourselves and what we can do to change them. She knows a thing or two about this. She knows a lot about it. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, addiction and trauma specialist, empowerment coach. And I just looking forward here to hearing her perspective on this, because she's really talking about the lies we believe and what we can do to change them. Dr. Adriana Popescu, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. So happy to be here with you today.
I just love the title of your book. And where did that come from?
It actually comes from this body of work that I've kind of been studying for the last 10 years or so called Access Consciousness. And they do a lot in the form of questions to get people to open up to a different way of seeing things. So when you ask a question like, what if you're not as effed up as you think you are? It immediately puts people into that, like, what if it starts opening up a different possibility for something to change? So I was already familiar with that statement and wanted somewhat of a provocative title. I mean, I'm a bit of an East Coast New York kind of girl, so
Yeah,
um, my
that's great.
personality is such that I probably use the F word a lot in my own life, and so it seemed like it would be fun to have a little bit of that in the title and to kind of grab people's attention with it.
Yeah. So share a little bit about your background and how you came to be doing this work.
Right. So, I mean, I would say kind of my traditional just education was very standard, went to an Ivy League college, learned a lot about the mind and was really in my head a lot. I kind of was cut off from the neck down, like not very aware of my own body or, anything beyond sort of the intellectual. And after college, I was living in Colorado and I became really ill, and doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I had symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome. I was getting a lot of pain. I was becoming really depressed. And it took them 13 years to finally figure out that what I had was Lyme disease.
Wow.
And Western medicine at that time, this was the 90s, they didn't really know much about it. Doctors were even telling me this is in your head. This is psychosomatic. This isn't even a real thing. So I had to look for healing and answers outside of the framework of traditional Western medicine. And that's what got me started with holistic therapies, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathic. I used herbs and different modalities to help my body to heal. But what I learned along the way was that there was also a psychological component. Any disease or condition has physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual components. And I had things in my history. I had early childhood trauma that I never really dealt with, never processed. And my body was still holding on to that stuff. And so as I learned these techniques from energy psychology and I started working with holistic healers, as I started to heal from these traumas, my body started getting healthier. So I became very intrigued with that and then started studying some of these modalities and bringing them into the work that I was doing when I was in grad school as a psychology student.
Wow. And so what led to writing this book, and what do you want to actually achieve with the book?
I want people to understand that the things that we come to believe about ourselves are programs. They're things we've learned. It's judgment. And, babies, when you look at them, they're born into the world, these bright little bundles of love and light, and they don't judge themselves and they don't judge other people, and they're not worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. They're just being here now, being themselves. But what ends up happening is as we go through life, we get told things. You're supposed to look this way, act this way. If you're different, it's bad. Don't be that weirdo. And then we start to learn to judge ourselves. So we learn these beliefs. We learn to think of ourselves in a negative way, and then we get stuck with those programs, and they keep running our lives. And what I see is people will come to me with all different issues, like even with coaching, like, why isn't my business successful? Why can't I be in a happy relationship? It's because you have beliefs that you might not even be conscious of that are basically saying you don't deserve it, or you're not enough, or everyone will leave you or whatever the belief is, that isn't fundamentally true, but you came to believe it at a very young age, and it's really limiting you in your life.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like, so, if you think of like a myth that everybody believes or a lot of people believe that just isn't true, what
Mhm.
what comes to mind?
Well, like using judgment as a motivation to change, right? Like, oh, I need to lose that 10 pounds. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I ate that, whatever,
Right.
right? The negative way in which we're talking about ourselves trying to create a change, that doesn't actually help you change. If anything, it tends to contract you and keep you stuck in this negative, toxic way of thinking, which is going to make change all that much harder.
Okay, so let me ask you something. If somebody said, "Hey, boy, I can relate to that example. Wow, I beat myself up. I told myself I was gonna be so good on my nutrition plan, but I ate ice cream last night." So instead, how should they talk to themselves?
It's okay that I had the ice cream, right? Like I'm human and ice cream tastes good. And as long as I'm not eating gallons of it every day, it's okay to have some ice cream every once in a while. I'm going to indulge in that and not feel bad about it. And then
Mm,
tomorrow, I'll get back on my nutrition plan. I don't have to be perfect. We have such a drive, so many of us, to think I must be perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. And then, even if you were to achieve all the things you're setting out to do as a perfectionist, once you achieve them, you don't really usually feel the satisfaction. You're already on to the next thing. Okay, now I have to achieve this, this, and this, because fundamentally, the perfectionist is functioning from a I'm not enough. And so I
yeah.
have to prove myself with all these accomplishments to prove that I'm worthy. But you'll never feel worthy if you don't fundamentally believe it.
Yes, I love it. So what's a tip for people that want to improve themselves, make the world a better place, or make their corner of the world, you know, better, their own world? What's a tip you'd share?
Well, first, I'd say to recognize that judgment isn't real. It's actually an invention. You don't see your dog or cat judging you, the trees not saying, "Ooh, don't sit next to me. You're so awful." Nothing in nature does it but humans. And it's like I said, it's a learned phenomenon. Babies don't know judgment, they learn it. So, knowing that judgment isn't real, that the things that you're telling yourself or believing yourself are probably not entirely true, and that even if you believe they are true, you can change them. Our thoughts, our emotions, even our physical sensations, they're all energy. Energy is malleable, it's molecules moving around. You can change it. And in my book that I wrote, I give people tons of tools from traditional psychology and energy psychology and even access consciousness. We can change the energy of our beliefs, and
Mhm.
that helps us change the way we think and feel. So you don't have to stay in the state of judgment and shame and feeling bad about yourself. You can actually change that and feel better. And then that in turn affects everyone around you. And then that affects the world. Like I believe that we change the world by healing what feels broken within and being the change we want to see in the world.
Love it. Where can people get your book?
So I have a landing page for the book called whatifyou'renot.com. It's on Amazon. It's at a recovery bookstore. We have the Kindle and the print version, and the audio is about to be released soon.
Fantastic. Well, this is such an important topic. Adriana, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Steve.